My name is Dr. Varun Deshmukh, and in this video we are going to discuss the two important parameters of fluid responsiveness, CVP and IVC. I hope the audio and video quality has improved because I have updated my equipments. So in this video we will discuss step by step about the different aspects of these two parameters. So first, starting with the CVP. CVP means central venous pressure. It is actually the pressure of the right atrium, and it is used to predict fluid responsiveness. So how it is done, we will discuss that first. So the patient lies in supine position. The central line is placed preferably in the IJV or in the subclavian. You have to make sure that the tip of the central line is at the junction of superior vena cava and right atrium. Second thing is the position of transducer. So the transducer is kept at the level of phlebostatic axis, that is around at the level of right atrium. So that corresponds to the horizontal line which is in the fourth intercostal space, and vertical line which is in the mid axillary line. In our ICU we tie the transducer on the arms. Then next thing to do is zeroing. So we zero the transducer against the atmosphere, and whatever value after that it will show will be the actual CVP. So once the zeroing is also done, make sure that no other fluid is flowing through the same line, and once everything is made sure and prepared, we are ready to go. So now whatever the value is shown is the CVP. What is actually the meaning of the value or the number that we see? So what actually we want to know when we want to assess the fluid responsiveness is that whether giving fluid will improve the left ventricular stroke volume. So whatever the CVP value is, that will be detected as a filling pressure, and if the filling pressure is low, that tells us that we can give more fluid until the filling pressure reaches a certain limit. In our case, when the patient is in shock, our range of CVP target is in the range of 8 to 12. So before knowing about the filling pressure, we must know what is the preload. So preload means length of the cardiac muscle at the end of diastole. For left ventricular preload, the cardiac muscle would be left ventricular cardiac muscle. So whenever the heart is underfilled, the length of the left ventricular muscle will also be shorter, and that will tell us that the preload is less, and it will reflect in less CVP, and we can give more fluids to this patient. Now what are the problems with CVP? So you can understand that we are measuring the pressure at the level of SVC. We want the result, end result at the level of left ventricle. So there are too many things downstream from SVC to the left ventricle. So starting one by one, first of all, the tricuspid valve should be normally working. There should be no tricuspid regurgitation. Second is right ventricular function. So it should be normal. Third is pulmonary artery pressure. So there should be no pulmonary artery hypertension. Then going forward, the left ventricle should not have any mass or anything. The mitral valve should be functioning normally, and left ventricle should also be functioning normally. So if left ventricle is having a poor compliance, then also the CVP will not be used as a good predictor for your fluid responsiveness. So knowing all this, we can understand that CVP is actually a very tricky parameter, and you have to make sure that all these parameters are assessed before relying on the CVP. In practical scenario, I would say in a perioperative patient whose cardiac status is normal, perhaps relying on CVP would give some merit. Other situation is when you are relying on the trend of CVP rather than a single value. So suppose CVP is say 8, and you give a fluid challenge and see if the CVP is rising, that means the patient's volume status is filled. After giving fluid also, if the CVP is not rising, that means perhaps you can give even more fluids. So in this way, in a titrated fashion, you can rely on CVP and assess the fluid responsiveness. However, there is a better parameter than CVP, which is the IVC assessment. So what do you need to know about the IVC? So first of all, the position of the patient. Patient has to be lying down in the supine position. The probe that you use, so preferably a cardiac probe, or you can also use a curvilinear probe. The marker of the probe should be kept at 12 o'clock position. The probe should be kept in the xiphisternum, just below the xiphisternum in the subcostal area, and the vessel that you will see will most likely be IVC. To make sure that it is IVC, just trace it little upwards and you will be able to see that the vessel is coming out from the right atrium. So that confirms that the vessel you see is IVC and not the aorta. Once you see the IVC, make sure that the whole screen is filled with the vessel. So adjust your probe accordingly and then select M mode and put the M mode marker at the level of roughly just distal to the origin of the hepatic vein. So now press the M mode, see the whole tracing and then freeze the screen. Now in the screen you will be able to see the whole IVC like this, and you may also be able to see the variation in the IVC. So now once you have freezed the screen, measure the maximum and minimum diameter of the IVC and you are good to go. So now if the patient is on a ventilator, the formula is maximum diameter minus minimum diameter divided by minimum diameter. So this will give you IVC distensibility, and the cutoff for distensibility is 18%. So if the distensibility is more than 18%, that means the patient is fluid responsive. Now when the patient is spontaneously breathing, you can use the other formula, which is called IVC collapsibility. The formula is maximum diameter minus minimum diameter divided by maximum diameter. So this will give you collapsibility, and the cutoff is 40 or 50%. So you have noticed that the denominator has changed. The denominator is maximum, so that whatever number we'll get is less. The answer of IVC collapsibility formula. Number will be less and the cutoff is higher, 40 or 50. That means we want to eliminate all the confounders, and so far whatever the data that we have got has shown that the distensibility is more reliable, the collapsibility is not so reliable. So perhaps that's why the formula is different and that's why the cutoff is higher, to make sure that we only include those who are actually fluid responsive. So you should also know why this variation happens. So whenever there is change in the intrathoracic pressure, there is change in the flows to the SVC and IVC, and this leads to variation in the size of the veins. So now, for example, when the patient is spontaneously breathing, during the inspiration there is a negative pressure which even becomes more negative at the end of inspiration. So during the inspiration, the flows from SVC and IVC come towards the thoracic cavity, and at the end of inspiration, the diameter of the IVC would be minimum. When the patient starts to exhale, again the pressure becomes positive and it may come up to 0. So in that case, the flows to the IVC and SVC will increase and the diameter will become maximum at the end of your expiration. Now on the contrary, when the patient is on a mechanical ventilation, in this scenario, when a positive pressure breath is given, at the end of inspiration, the positive pressure is maximum in the lungs and the diameter of IVC and SVC are maximum. Because of the positive pressure, the blood is pushed out from the thoracic cavity. So at the end of inspiration, the diameter is maximum, and when there is an expiration, the positive pressure becomes less and the diameter becomes less. So at the end of expiration, the diameter is also least. So this way you can measure. So positive pressure and spontaneously breathing have different mechanisms, and the diameters are also behaving in the opposite way. But what we are interested is in the variation. So that is sort of a dynamic parameter. If you compare it with CVP, here with each breath there is a certain change, and we are relying on that, not just the size of the IVC as a single parameter. So this makes it a little superior to the CVP. Okay. And whatever studies have been done for CVP as a fluid responsiveness predictor, they have not been able to show great correlation of CVP with fluid responsiveness. So that's why the need to search for a more advanced parameter, which is IVC variation. Another advantage of IVC variation is that it is non-invasive and it can be performed repeatedly. Since it is non-invasive, the risk of arrhythmias, risk of bleeding, infection, thrombosis, all these complications related to a central line can be avoided. So now we will discuss what are the parameters which affects the IVC variation. So first and foremost is the application of PEEP and low tidal volume. So when we give lung protective ventilation for ARDS patients, the tidal volume is generally around 6 ml per kg of predictive body weight, and whatever the tidal volume be, if it is less than 8 ml per kg, it will not reflect in the change in IVC diameter as much as we would expect and it will reduce the sensitivity and predictive value of IVC assessment. So that thing has to be kept in mind. Another thing is patient spontaneous breathing efforts. So when the patient is deeply sedated or paralyzed, a fixed tidal volume is being delivered. When the patient is spontaneously breathing without any sort of ventilator support, at that time also roughly the fixed tidal volume is being delivered. But when the patient is on pressure support or NIV, with each breath at a certain pressure, there is an additional patient effort also, which leads to variation in the tidal volumes, and this leads to eventually variation in the IVC diameter. So when the patient is on pressure support or NIV, or a patient who is on volume control or pressure control and is making excessive breathing efforts, in these scenarios the IVC variability may not be as reliable. The third and important thing is patients with intrinsic PEEP. So patients with COPD and asthma have a tendency to have a hyperinflated lungs, and they have intrinsic PEEP. So at the end of expiration also there is some positive pressure, and IVC may not collapse as we would expect in a ventilated patient. So in these patients also the IVC variation is not much dependable. Apart from these ventilatory parameters, there are also certain cardiac parameters. So when the tricuspid valve is not functioning well and there is lot of regurgitation, the IVC will be falsely dilated. When there is right ventricular dysfunction, the IVC will be falsely dilated, irrespective of the left ventricular filling pressure. Or when there is a pericardial disease, constrictive pericarditis or pericardial tamponade, in these scenarios also the heart will not be able to expand, and eventually this will lead to falsely dilated IVC. So these are the cardiac factors that you should be aware of. Another important thing is increase in the intra-abdominal pressure. So if the intra-abdominal pressure is more, the diaphragm is pushed up, in these scenarios also you may not be able to see the variation in IVC as you would see in a normal abdominal pressure. And last and most important parameters are the local factors, which are thrombus in the IVC, which you can easily visualize, or placement of an ECMO cannula in the IVC, which is a common practice in these days. So that is also something which you should be aware of, that presence of a ECMO cannula will also not let IVC collapse fully in case that is the scenario, and that will also confound your findings, and you will not be able to predict the fluid responsiveness. So these are the factors which will influence the IVC assessment, and you should be aware of that. So whenever the patient is in shock, you cannot rely on a single parameter, be it CVP or IVC. You have to take multiple parameters into account, and based on that you can take a decision whether your patient is really in shock, how the patient is responding to shock, and whether to give fluid or whether to start inotropes. So I have discussed types and approach to shock in a different video, and if you are interested you can go and see that video as well. If you like this video, please hit like button, hit subscribe button to my channel, and if you have any suggestions, please write down in the comment box and I will try to incorporate in my coming videos. If you have any suggestions for topics related to intensive care medicine, and if I get enough requests, I will definitely consider the topic and I will include in my coming videos. Thank you for listening and have a good day.